In Angular, you can programmatically determine if an element is disabled by assigning the disabled attribute to the result of an expression. So here I've got the disabled attribute assigned to the button disabled property. If you look in the component, I've got a button disabled property, which is a Boolean, which is currently set to false. I've also got a count property, which is a number, which is set to 0. So this button will be disabled if button disabled is set to true. There's a click event handler which sets the count property to increase by 1. So the button just shows how many times it's been clicked. Up here I have two more buttons. This button sets the button disabled to true, and if button disabled is false, it shows, so it allows us to disable the button. And then this button shows if the button disabled is true, and it sets it to false. So basically these two buttons toggle, they hide and show each other, but they both toggle the value of button disabled, which determines if this button is disabled. So let's see how this all works. So here I've got the I've been clicked button, and if I click it, you can see that it's being clicked. Every time I click it, the count increases. But if I click the disable button, then the button becomes disabled, and clicking it does nothing. So you can see the button is definitely disabled. And if I click enable button, then the button is enabled again, and I can keep counting. So let's inspect the DOM, and we can see that this is the button that keeps changing every time you click it. You can see the count is changing as 17, 18, 19. But when I click the disable button, the target button will change. Now it has a disabled attribute. So this button here can no longer be clicked. It's disabled. And when I click the enable button, this disabled attribute will disappear. And now the button is enabled again. So as I click these top buttons, the disabled attribute is toggled down here on the target button, allowing us to disable or enable the button. And when it's enabled, the button is functional, but when it's disabled, it no longer functions. So this can all be determined by the disabled attribute. You need to set it equal to the result of an expression. In this case, it's the value of the button disabled property in my component, which allows us to enable and disable the button.